Andrew Hulbert, welcome to Focus on the Fun Stuff.
Thank you so much for having me. This is great. Looking forward to it.
I'm really looking forward to this. Very fortuitously, two people most recently have recommended you to me to have as a guest on the podcast. And you built Pareto in 2014, have exited it twice in 2021 and 2023. And I mean, if anything, I feel like your business has not been a roller coaster, it's been more like a skyrocket.
Yeah. I think
Even from our brief chat prior to the podcast starting, like it seems like a skyrocket. But just to start this conversation, like you're not from an entrepreneurial family, are you? Like it's not in the family to build and grow and exit big businesses. So if we I'd just like to go back to like 2014. Who was Andrew Hulbert back in 2014?
And that is a long question. I'll try and keep it condensed. So look, I am a typical council estate family, working class guy. So my dad was in a factory 42 years. My mum was in Sainsbury's for 30 years, as well as trying to bring two kids up and do two other jobs at the same time. Three kids up, sorry, other than me. So really, I grew up with the value of money and proper working class. So had my first job when I was 12, stuffing the local papers in the corner shop on a Saturday and Sunday at 4 a.m. in the morning. And in Oxford, where I grew up, we used to cycle everywhere. So I was cycling from the age of 8 and had a lot of independence. Look, I had a pretty rough upbringing up to the age of 15. I was in with the wrong crowd. I was smoking early, having sex early, drinking early, getting into trouble. I was very nearly murdered when I was 15. Had a very lucky escape. 3 guys beat me up in a park with a scooter handle and tore the ear off the side of my face. And so I had some challenging times, and it could have been very different for me early on. And when I was about 15 and a half, I started carrying a knife because I'd been attacked. And I had a moment where I was in an under 18s nightclub called Fifth Avenue in Oxford. And I had the knife in my shoe, and I got in, and I saw the guy that had attacked me 6 months earlier.
Oh my God.
And I had a red mist moment where I was ready to go and kill him to get him back. And I had a knife that my dad had sharpened in his factory for me in my shoe. And whatever happened on that day, as I had the red mist, as I was ready to go and get my own back, I decided stabbing him in the back of the neck wasn't going to be the right thing to do. And we left, and I didn't take that opportunity. I know I would have been in prison for life probably at that stage. The only thing that went through my mind was, how did I prove that he was the one that tried to kill me 6 months earlier? Right. So anyway, that was all good, and came out of that. And then I went into sixth form, and actually that's really where my life changed, because all my friends from my early life, they didn't go into sixth form. And I found myself in a brilliant school in Oxfordshire called Cherwell. All my mates were now white middle class guys that were all going to university. And at the age of 16, I fell in with the right crowd. And then I ended up going to university, the first one in my family to do so, which was great. I studied business management, and I met my wife on the very first day. I thought, great, I'm going to go to Essex. It's going to be great. I'm going to have a fantastic time. Met Heather on the first day, and we've been together ever since now. So 20 odd years we've been together. Oh. And I ended up, and getting to the point, I ended up going to work in a graduate scheme in a property services business, just a little one, about 6 million turnover. And as a guy in my early 20s, I just worked really hard. They gave me loads of responsibility. I had like a team of 50 almost immediately, delivering various services in properties, in commercial properties in the UK. By the age of 24, I'd grown to ops director, and I was just sitting just directly into the board, had 250 staff that I was looking after. And then we got bought out by this big business. And we went from like a £10 million business to an £8 billion business overnight. I did 2 years in this big business, and I hated every day, to be honest. It just wasn't for me. I was great being a big guy in a small business. I wasn't great at being a small guy in a massive business. It just didn't work for me. So yeah, I got frustrated, got annoyed. Where I went out for a Mayfair steak one night with the senior team and was a bit drunk in a cab with them on the way back, looking around going, I don't like these guys. I actually don't know what I'm doing here. I was 26 at the time. I don't know what I'm doing here. I don't know what my life is all about. Why am I wasting my time? And I went home to my wife and I said, I'm going to leave and start my own business. I think I can do this. She wasn't wholly on board with the idea because we just had a mortgage, but it was before we had kids. And I quit, and I literally set up Pareto from my bedroom in August 2014. And I was there on my own with a laptop, no funding, backers, clients, processes, anything. And that's how I started.
It would strike me that setting up that kind of business needs cash flow and things and funding and
It's a good question. Yes and no. The barriers to entry are actually relatively low because until you start delivering services. So if I tell you about our first contract, it will help give it context. So our first contract was Bulgari Hotel, and it was one engineer that was on site permanently, and he delivered all of the maintenance and compliance services in the hotel. So water, fire, security, all that sort of stuff. So until you hire somebody, there aren't many costs to getting going in the business. The real key is you need someone to give you the opportunity for your first opportunity, because when you deliver compliance-based services, it's really important that you do them and that you can evidence that you do them, and you treat your team well. What I managed to negotiate with that customer, which is almost unheard of, is I managed to get quarterly and advance payment terms on a contract that was a couple of £100,000 a year.
oh wow.
So the literal first deal I did, I was able to cash flow myself from that deal. And that was very lucky.
And did they know that they were your first client?
Yeah. So I'd had, look, when I say standing start, it was a standing start.
Yeah.
But for 6 years, I'd been in the sector, I've been networking, I've been winning awards, I've been writing articles. So like one piece of advice I give to a lot of people is when you're working for someone else, on their time and money, go and build your brand. Go and build your personal brand so people know about you. Yeah. And I don't mean do it half-assed. I mean, go and network 3 or 4 times a week. Yeah. Be in the room every night so that people know who you are. Find out who all the editors are of the local press magazines and write them articles all the time. ChatGPT can do it for you now. You just need to be a little bit better than most people. Apply for awards. Like, go and put yourself out there. Go and tell the story of yourself. So like I was doing all of that for 6 years. And because I was this young guy that had come out of university and our sector's full of older people that have been doing it for a long time, I was able to tell a different story and build a bit of a personal brand. So when I started up, I already knew Bulgari. I didn't know they'd say yes, but I knew I had the opportunity to call them early on and say, hey, I've started this business. I know you don't love big businesses that aren't serving you very well at the moment. How about you give us a chance? And that's how it started. And a guy called Jeff, who was in his late 60s, every other word was a swear word with him, which is why we got on so well. But he had 2 kids that were similar age to me, and one of them was an entrepreneur. She actually ran a fancy dress shop. That's what his daughter did. And I think he could see this sort of entrepreneurial spirit that I would do whatever it took to make that contract a success. And and luckily for us, he said yes, and he started, and that's how we started to build our cash flow. And look, by the time we exited, the cash was around 4 million that we got to from a zero start. And so that was a really cash generative business that we were able to create. And that's how it started. And Bulgari, obviously an amazing brand, a great jewelry brand. I could never afford anything from there. and the suite was £15,000 a night to stay in. So we had the most famous people in the world staying in there as well. And many, many stories of celebrity names that I can't use that were just absolutely brilliant at the time. And that's how it started. That literally Pareto day one is how we got going.
Wow. And I want to unpack the whole journey, but when you created this business, was it like, I'm just going to see what I can do, I'm going to see where I can take it, or was the goal always like, I want to exit this business?
I was not thinking about exit at the very beginning. Really, where I got to, I thought, right, I'm in my mid to late 20s now. I think I can do this better. And I think I can tell this story about this young guy who's come into the sector, wants to modernize the facilities sector and workplace sector, and actually wants to do things differently. And I'll come on to it, but like ESG, so environmental, social, governance. So basically doing social initiatives that were going to support people and communities. I knew that that was a growing importance to clients within the sector, and the bigger businesses just didn't get it. So for me, I had this idea that I could be this guy going on a journey, and I could deliver social good whilst delivering profitable growth as well. And I just thought customers might like the concept of that. I did not have an exit in mind. I didn't know how much money is enough money. And that's a question for anybody. Yeah. How much money is enough money? Actually, there isn't an answer to that. It's all about what you think in here. And look, to be honest, it was just one of those where I thought, great, I've got one contract to begin with. And then it just rolled and rolled and rolled. And we went on to be one of the fastest growing businesses in the UK, let alone in the sector, and just had this amazing growth to about £50 million turnover in about a 9-year period, and with around 500 odd staff in the end.
And this is probably quite a wide question. This breadth of turnover that you reached, like in my world, a lot of the networking groups, the masterminds that I'm in, one of the first milestones that Honestly, I would say like 95% of business owners talk about in the rooms that I'm in is getting to seven figures. It's that first million, the first million revenue. So am I right in that the revenue figure that at this point you got to is 50 million?
It is, and look, some years we grew 300%, and even in year 7 to 8 we grew 77%. So we nearly doubled in size off the back of COVID, which I'll come to. What we did from the very, very beginning, I was ambitious that the business wasn't just going to be £1 million little business.
Yeah.
I was already trying to act as a medium business from the very beginning. So what I mean by that is we would almost make decisions based on the fact we were a £20 million provider from the start. And that was the mentality and the mindset that we had. Now, what that also meant was we put systems in that we knew we could grow to 20 million from day one. So like Xero finance package, many people use Xero. I think we were still 40 million when we were using Xero, but we had it from the very beginning. The computer software system that we needed to deliver these maintenance services to customers, we still have that today. Pareto is an £80 million business today, and we're still using a similar system. We had to upgrade our finance systems and CRM, etc., in the future. But from the beginning, we tried to put systems in that wouldn't hold us back so that the growth was always there. Now, that was a mindset thing, and that was actually making some deliberate decisions. And if it meant that the software was a little bit more expensive at the start because we knew it could get us much further, then that's what we would do. It took us about 5 years, 6 years to get to 20 million. So it was a really good period for us to learn and deliver and use the systems. The other thing that, and this is really important on mindset, when you think you're a £20 million business, of course I knew we weren't, but I thought like we were. When you go into a sales pitch, say it's £1 million contract and you're only £1 million turnover business in reality, if you have a mindset that you're already 20 million and you're sort of acting and answering questions in that way, you can manifest a lot for yourself because people will believe in your energy around your business. And if you think that contract is too big for you, the customer is going to think the contract is too big for you, and vice versa. There's a wonderful phrase, isn't there? Those who think they can and those who think they can't are usually right. It's exactly the same in sales. And like, that's exactly what you need to do. So what we were able to do with that mindset was start to get some decent growth. And I'm never saying be dishonest about growth, but when you're a micro business, say under 10 million, your accounts don't show your turnover anyway. So if you're only 1 million, you can say you're 3 to 5 million, and your accounts actually are going to be published maybe 18 months after that point that you say it anyway. So I'm never saying lie, but I'm just saying sometimes you can build a better story and give good PR from a story. And the other piece of advice is once you get your first customer, just sell the shit out of that customer to everybody else. Just go and sell it. So when we won Bulgari, what an amazing name for us to be able to go and talk to other businesses about. If I may just go on in terms of how the next customers went on. So we won Bulgari. Then people heard we were live, we were going. Now I had a contract. I had an engineer somewhere, I had a 6-star hotel in Knightsbridge, which was a stunning place to be. Some of the most modern equipment in the world as well. They'd really fit it out to a high standard, which in property services mattered. And then Yahoo knocked on the door and said, oh, hey, we've heard. Knocked on our door. Yeah. And then it said, oh, hey, you heard you've set up. We don't like the big companies. Would you consider coming to tender for our work? Fantastic news. Now, remember, look, I wasn't just some guy in a bedroom without a profile. People knew what I'd been doing for the last 6 years. But that was a very deliberate, I didn't know I was going to start a business, but I was trying to grow my career through creating personal brand. And this is back in 2010 when no one knew what personal brand was at that stage. So then we won Yahoo. And then I think the next one was Twitter. So Twitter came in, and now look, Twitter was a 25 grand a year contract, right? And we were maybe approaching £1 million a year business at that stage, but it didn't matter. The name Twitter back in like 2016 was one of the best like places that you could work. And they had this stunning office, and they had like a yoga room and a library and a secret bar that you went through in this like glass door upstairs. And Twitter loved us. And there's someone that Twitter was a core part of our journey, and it was so generous to us. And then Musk came in a little bit later on and things changed. But in the early days, they were really, really wonderful to us. So we got to about £1 million. We had maybe 3 or 4, maybe 5 customers at that stage. I was doing some consultancy stuff to keep the money rolling in as well, all at the same time through Pareto. And then our big one came, and it was London Zoo. Now, Pareto and London Zoo have had a wonderful relationship for the last 10 years or so now. But how it actually started was they'd outsourced for the first time in their property services for 200 years. They'd never outsourced before. It had gone to a different provider, a bigger provider, and it was going very badly. I worked with a woman called Jane, who was in my earlier career, and we got on really well. I was her line manager. She'd gone on to be the head of property there. So she called and said, look, we are having a bit of trouble here. We need to improve our compliance and our services. Now, zoos, you have 20,000 animals across 700 acres. It's very important you get maintenance and category 1 inspections and things right. And we needed to help them improve and showcase all of the compliance and things that they did. So we went in and we presented to the trustees and the board, and we said, this is who we are. This is the size of our business. This is what we're trying to achieve. And they awarded us a £2.3 million contract overnight on a £1 million turnover business. So that, when I say about that mentality of thinking that you're bigger than you are, now, had we have gone into that with a mentality that we were a £1 million business and they said this is a £2.3 million opportunity, we would have said, well, this is too big for us. But actually, through a real partnership approach and understanding each other's fragilities and the effort that we were going to put in and the commitments that we made, they said yes. And it went on to be one of the most brilliant relationships within the sector, won multiple awards in the last 10 years. A big renewal process has just taken place, and that absolutely worked. But it meant for us, we grew 300% because we'd gone from £1 million business with about, say, 20 people in it to a £3.5 million business with 50 people in it. And that was something that we had to deal with. Now, look, that sounds wonderful, and sales is wonderful, but now you have the reality of delivery. And then, so I was, that is really when my life started to get very, very busy, because I'd made commitments to make sure it was going to work. And I went in and I started the delivery, and as well as leading the sales and managing the finance team. And I was doing the ops as well. And it got very, very busy. And really, whilst I tell a wonderful story, don't ever underestimate that this was 110 hours a week. All I did was work and sleep. And that's how we made it a success.
And I just want to ask, maybe it's a very basic question, but in the beginning, you work with these amazing clients and you clearly capitalize on that quite quickly. Like, you start to spread the success stories, the case studies. And I think mainly a lot of business owners do very poorly at that. Like, everybody's got really great success stories, client transformations, and then actually telling the world about it doesn't happen. And so in the world that you lived in, like, how did that happen? With the contracts you had, did you have to ask for permission? Did you just create the case studies? Like, how did that work for you?
So there's a couple of things. Promoting clients online is different to having a conversation face-to-face where nothing is written down. So there are two things to do. Number one is you have all the information about it. I'm not saying go and share commercially sensitive details, but even though we weren't allowed to talk online about Twitter, if I went to have a coffee with a customer, I could absolutely tell them about Twitter. Okay. And I'd make it sound like it was a £1 million contract, even though it was a £25,000 contract. The other thing then is be really proactive. Those customers that love you and you have a great relationship with, write up a case study for them and say, hey, here's the case study I've written. ChatGPT will do this for you, hands down now. It's very easy these days. I used to do this all myself. Go to the customer, hey, we've written this case study. Now, look, you don't need to put all the detail in. It doesn't need to be commercially sensitive. We pretty much said, Pareto partners with X. Here's a photo of their office space, because they were always really cool offices that we work with. We just want to say that we work together. Now, generally, that would then go up to their PR teams or marketing teams, and generally they'd say yes, because we were a good business, we had a good relationship. Actually, we didn't really put those on the website because we didn't want our competitors looking at what we were doing. Okay. But any tender that we did for future work, we would have maybe 6 to 10 case studies in the end, and we would change them depending on who we were tendering for. So yes, there are two things. Verbally, use it, and I mean really use it. And when you go to networking events, so if you think of me in a networking event right at the beginning, oh yeah, by the way, our first 3 clients are Bulgaria, Yahoo, and Twitter. That gets someone's attention. And actually, there's nothing commercially sensitive about that. Now, obviously, every customer is different. Everyone has to be careful. But I think entrepreneurs, and certainly the sales people as entrepreneurs, your job is to go and create a story. And your job is to get people's attention. So if you can go and start dropping those, oh, and by the way, we just won a £2 million contract with London Zoo, and we look after 20,000 animals, and the Queen is coming to open the elephants next week. You see now how powerful that is. They're like, okay, wow, maybe I should be talking to this guy about what's going on. So yeah, it's about building your story up. you don't need many elements of truth to build a brilliant story. You just need enough. And that's what marketing is all about. And I really believe this. With PR, tell people what you want them to believe, as long as it's within the realms of the truth. Tell them enough times and they'll believe it. You just have to do it with conviction and make sure that you believe it as well. And that's why, like, this growth mindset thing that people talk a lot about, growth mindset now, they didn't 10 years ago when I was sort of in the midst of this. That growth mindset is so important. If you believe it, you manifest it, they will believe it. I'm not saying all out lie. I'm just saying use elements to absolutely build your story. And that's it. And that's what worked. And that's how you start to build momentum. And it's just so powerful for us.
I absolutely love that. I mean, there's so many business owners, aren't there? I mean, especially in Britain, I think we're very self-deprecating. Like, we don't want to big ourselves up. We don't want to shout about ourselves too loud or share the stories. It's very different in the States, I think.
Yeah, but if you're not going to promote yourself, let me tell you another story. And this will just make people laugh a little bit. So I saw myself as a character, really. So when I went to sell, I sort of like, that is Andrew the character, right? Now, Andrew the character can be whoever you want him to be. And that's quite powerful, because the power of sales is changing that character to say the right things that that customer wants you to say. Again, there's the adage, treat people like they want to be treated. There's the adage, treat people like you want to be treated. Absolutely not right. Treat people how they want to be treated. Talk to them in the way that they want to be spoken to. So I had this character, Andrew, that would go in and do the selling. Now, partly that was a defense mechanism, because if someone hated Andrew, that's okay, because it wasn't me. And the guy that got back in the car and drove home wasn't Andrew. That was Hulbert, or whatever I would call myself. So I wasn't quite schizophrenic, but I sort of had these two personas. Now, what I would do, I would absolutely go out of my way to make a song and dance out of pretty much anything I could, so that people knew we were there. In our world of property services, often you will tender for work. So a client will put out a specification. You will go with maybe 10 other service providers, so 9 of your competitors, in a walk around of a building, and you walk around and you look at the lights and the roof and all that sort of stuff. Anytime I did that, I would take a tray of donuts with me. And I'd walk into the room and I'd be like, hey guys, Andrew's back again. Do you want a donut? Now, in the early days, competitors are very secretive of each other, like writing down little notes and whispering to each other. And I came in there like this big clown, like, hey guys, here I am. You couldn't fail to notice that Andrew was here. Now, even as the founder, even as we got bigger, I always put myself in that walk around, because I knew that the customer could see me. They could see how I was interacting with the other competitors, and they knew to some degree that was going to be similar to how we would interact. Yeah. Almost like, if Andrew is acting like this with his competitors, bloody hell, what's he going to be like with us as a customer? And of course, you bring customer their own donuts and they have their logo on, and you get a gluten option and a vegan option and all that stuff too. So this is what I mean about sales. Create a story, because you know what? A load of those competitors would go home and go, that guy. Yeah. And then when I turn up next time with twice as many donuts, you can imagine their reaction. Now, I wasn't trying to upset anybody. I was just trying to create a little bit of a story and bring the energy to it. Yeah. And we tended to sell to big tech businesses in the end. So big clients went on to be people like Deliveroo, ASOS, Netflix, Facebook, those sort of organizations. So we managed to extrapolate that early stuff and go in and sell to these bigger businesses. What I found is, and again, this is good advice, big businesses like that can choose whoever they like to do services for them in any aspect of what they do, whether it's stationery or reception services, whatever it is, they can choose whatever they want. They generally take for granted that anybody can change a light bulb, maintain the water system or whatever. But what we're able to do is sort of show them this story that we were going on and building this richness of creativity and character. And they almost wanted to support what was different within the sector. And I go back to those social initiatives and the environmental initiatives that we did. We could demonstrate that we were different and better to these other organizations and the options that were out there. And that really helped us with our opportunities. So again, in different sectors, my advice would be, what is it that, how can you look at the big businesses? What do they do well? And that's what they do well. Great. You're probably not going to compete with them on what they do well, because they're 300 times your size and you're never going to be as good as them. Fine. What do they do badly? Well, find out what they do badly and be really good at that, and go back to the customer and tell them that big company is bad at that. We are very good at that. And we think that's why you should buy from us, because this is really important. So for us, like social value and supporting staff and treating people well and fair payment terms and stuff wasn't commonplace when we joined. So we just absolutely turned it round, going back to working class like mentality and being from that sort of council estate family. Make it as brilliant as you can for the people in your organization to work for you, because the competitors had lost touch with those people. So then when you went to a customer like Netflix, say, and say, we are going to treat the staff that work on your site, who work for our business, like they are absolute champions of the world. And they're going to love it. And they're going to want to be part of our business and be part of yours. It sounds so simple, but that is not what the big companies did. So we just got their attention. And actually, it was all about people. And services of property is about people, but we really made it about people. And we ended up delivering 150 different initiatives in the social governance and environmental space. And it was real. It wasn't like change your flag to a rainbow in Pride Month. That sort of change your logo to a rainbow in Pride Month. That's actually really offensive. Actually, it was more about let's pay to go and march in Pride, to be the first property company that did. And I'd be there right at the front with a glitter beard on, and I'm still finding glitter some 10 years later. And just absolutely like, let's just be proud of what we're doing here. And in things like Black History Month, let's tackle this. Actually, let's do something that's going to change. So in the UK, there aren't enough black blood donors, for example. So sickle cell disease doesn't have enough blood that can be utilized. So in October, when it was Black History Month in 22, we changed our policy so anybody in the business could take time off to donate blood 4 times a year. I donated blood for the first time then, absolutely loved it. And now that I've retired, I'm one of the biggest blood donors in the world. I donate blood every 2 weeks, and because of my size, give 3 bags every 2 weeks, saved over 1,000 lives in the last 18 months or so. And I plan to go on to donate for as long as I can. And that all started from that Black History Month thing.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, how fantastic.
So that's a whole different podcast on its own. But yeah, I donate. I still got the scar. Donated a couple of days ago. And I'll be back there in about 12 days' time. And then it's not the fact that you're one of the biggest blood donors in the world. It's the fact that you've changed the policy for 200 people to go and be blood donors 4 times a year, because that's how much you can donate whole blood. And it's a nice story. And customers like it. And with the right customers, it resonates. That is an easy thing to do. And the reality is not many of the staff did it, because there's many reasons that people can't donate blood. But it doesn't matter. It's the story. It's the thought process that goes with it.
And Andrew, just as an aside, like, can I ask the question about, so like sat together now, I feel the confidence, I feel the energy from you. And I think it's very clear that from the beginning, when you started the business, like, you've been very much like, this is who we are, this is what we're going to do, this is what we're going to make happen. And I think there are so many business owners that the biggest unlock for them would actually just be that sense of energy and confidence and mindset to go, we're freaking great. This is what we do, rather than the, oh, like, I don't want to follow up, or I'm here if you need me. Do you want to buy something from me? Like, the energy from you is very, very different. And I just wonder, like, where do you think that energy and confidence and mindset came from?
And just on those services, by the way, I've sold 250 million pounds of service contracts in 9 years personally. I've been the one that's done the deal and signed the contract. I didn't win a single pound on LinkedIn. I never LinkedIn messaged somebody and said, hey, can I sell you services? And look, I get hit all the time with LinkedIn ads and all that. For me, it doesn't work, right? That's what I mean about network 3 or 4 times a week and let the luck happen. Where does it come from? I think it originally comes from my upbringing. So community and looking after each other and being part of something bigger was just absolutely my background. So, and I said, from the age of 8, we had a bike and I was cycling around Oxford and being with my friends. And what I loved about my upbringing was it was a really diverse upbringing. Yes, there were challenges and I got into trouble and I was sort of learning what life was about early on. But my friends, some of them were refugees from different countries. Some of them were from different cultures and I was eating their food. Some of them happened to be neurodiverse, actually quite significantly. So like all those things, it was just this really rich tapestry of like my early life, which it's hard to create that. And that's just lucky in terms of that I enjoyed that aspect of it. And then really it was about community and coming together. So every Sunday, about 25 members of my family would all go around to my nan's house. And my nan had this tiny little living room with like 4 sofas, 4-seater sofa in it. And we'd all go there and we'd eat and we'd be together and we'd share stories from the week and we'd sort of plan for the following week. Yeah. And I had a family unit where you did anything for anyone in that family. It didn't matter what it was, what you were doing, you would cancel it and you would prioritize. So that just gave me this real confidence, firstly, because I was out and about from an early age. Yeah. Secondly, I understood the power of community and being together, and people from different backgrounds weren't unusual to me. That was just where I was from, and I wanted to support it. Plus, I had a mum and dad that were working incredibly hard for relatively low wages for really long periods of time. My dad only worked in that factory from the age of 15 to 62. And I'll talk about what I did with my money later. But one thing I did when I got the money the first time was I took £250,000 out in cash on my quad bike, put it in a Sainsbury's bag, drove, it's absolutely true, drove to my dad's house and poured £250,000 on the floor and said, you can retire 5 years early. Absolutely true. The bank was really unhappy about me.
So hang on, how do you get, because I feel like you cannot just draw that money out.
I was stood in the bank in a pair of flip-flops and shorts and a t-shirt on my quad bike just outside. And they said, the moment we pass this money through this like glass thing, yeah, it's your problem. And what I did, and I thought I was being clever, I'd called up Barclays, because Barclays is my bank in Bicester. I called them up and said, right, I'm going to come tomorrow. I'm going to take this amount of money. And I told them I was going to come in the morning, but I didn't go till the afternoon, just in case someone had intercepted that message and they were going to meet me outside and wait. So I sort of had this idea that I said I'd be there at 9 a.m. and I went at like 4 p.m. or something. And so if anyone was waiting for that £250,000, they're still waiting for it now. And I have photos of my dad laid down with all his stacks of 50s and 20s laid in front of him. He then had to take it back to the bank to put it back in. And they were very unhappy with that. It took them 2 hours. They counted every single note to make sure it was real. It was a different Barclays as well. So sorry, I've gone off on a complete segue, but no, that's true.
So does 50 grand fit into one Sainsbury's bag?
It does, yeah, just about. It was mainly 50s and a few 20s. But yeah, that is for anyone, especially with the family background I came from. You know, hard work is what my family did to be able to do things like that. And I went on to buy my mum and dad their house, my two sisters their house, obviously bought my own house. I've given my mum a load of money so they can retire happy. They're going on cruises left, right and centre. But actually, family was what was important. And so that confidence, and where does it come from? It comes from there, because I was, as a very early child, I was given the ability to go out and have adventure. And I got myself into all sorts of trouble. I still get myself into trouble now, even as an entrepreneur. No, and only last week I drove from Oslo to Trondheim in Norway and got stuck down some farm and had to be rescued by the farmer in -10 in the middle of the mountains. Right. Literally, that was last week. I thought I was going to be sleeping in the car for days, thinking what I was going to eat out of my bag. But yeah, there's an adventure, and there's part of my being there. And I just love this idea that we were going to create something that people loved. And you can see I have a lot of energy still about it, and but it's very real. Yes. And and it worked really well for us.
Yeah, and I think it's that being real bit, isn't it? That's actually the key point. Because like I sense it now, and it's so much easier when you're around someone who's like passionate, and you really sense it, and it comes through.
And like I say, you go back into that room in the tender walk around with the other 9 companies, and I'm the one there with the donuts making a song and dance out of everything, and they're all secretly writing on their pads, you know, whatever they were writing on their pads about me. But you can see the difference. Yeah. Now anyone can do that. You just need to create it. There's no money involved in that. That's just mindset.
No, and like with the donuts, it's really easy to stand out, isn't it? Because most people don't do that extra thinking. Like, it's rarefied air, isn't it? Once you do that little bit of extra thinking, you are standing out like nobody's business.
It's like the 1%. I had Charlie, one of my early business partners. He said it's all about the 1%. He's absolutely right. What's the 1% of things that you're going to do that your competitors are not? Yeah. And the thing is, it's about consistency. You do it every time. Yes. And say sometimes we'd meet a customer 3 or 4 times in the sales process. Well, let's say I took them donuts the first time. Well, now I have to delight them even more the second time. So what I would then do is I'd research them. I'd be like, oh, what was your first job? And I remember the one I loved, it absolutely landed. I researched a customer, and their first job was in Antler, the suitcase maker. So the second time I went to meet them, I got this bright orange Antler luggage tag. And I said, oh, I'd done some research about Antler. And they're like, wow, no one's ever spoken to me about Antler. I haven't worked there for 25 years. You know, how did you know that? And you're just delighting people in a way that they're going to remember you. The other thing we used to do, and look, these are all really good tips. We used to do things that we knew they could take away with them as well. So there was this period where bug hotels became really, like, everyone wanted a bug hotel. So in their garden, so you'd have like beetles and stuff could live in these things. Oh, okay. So when we were talking about sustainability, and in big buildings, they really care about energy usage and sustainability and green and all those sorts of things. So we used to take bug hotels. And then we did this big thing once where, and this is about being memorable, my sister came, I was having a chat with her one day. She said, Andrew, money's tight. You know, I don't know whether I'm going to turn my heating off, not buy the food I need, or not buy sanitary towels. And I was like, nah, you have to do all those things and I'll make sure that you do. But you can't be telling me that period poverty is a real thing, even in like my own thing. She's like, yeah, absolutely. So I went to Sainsbury's that very afternoon. Again, this is true. And I bought 50,000 sanitary towels that afternoon. And from that one Sainsbury's, yeah, they had to deliver them to my house because I couldn't fit them in the car. 50,000 sanitary towels is massive, by the way. And so then great. Here's another story. We gave away 50,000 sanitary towels, and my sister had them. As I came to learn, not all women use the same type of sanitary towel, and actually, it sometimes worked, it sometimes didn't. It did, but in my family, the women raised us. So like those sorts of scenarios about talking about periods and stuff was really normal for me growing up because that was the woman-led environment that I was in. Yeah. That also gave me a real confidence to be able to speak to women about stuff that other men would just completely shy away from. And, you know, I really wanted to have a daughter, which I'm very fortunate I went on to have a daughter now that I can make Prime Minister one day. It's my idea for her. But then actually, you know, I did the 50,000 sanitary towel things and people said, oh, well, that's not very good for the environment. I was like, yeah, but actually I'm trying to make sure that people's health is prioritized first. So then I was like, okay, I take the feedback. So then I went and found this Ethiopian company that makes washable sanitary towels. And so then we bought like 300 packs of those and started distributing those as well. Now, look, none of this really has anything to do with the business that I was running, but it was all just about having these stories to be able to tell and being able to like leave a pack of those rewashable sanitary towels in a meeting that I'd just been in to say, hey, this is the sort of change that we're trying to create. And you see how now I've left that behind. That's something that people are thinking about. Which other 31-year-old men were going in there saying, do you know, I bought 50,000 sanitary towels last week and here's some ones I got made in Ethiopia. Again, this thing doesn't have to cost much money. And actually like I think the packs of the reusable ones were like £7 or something from Ethiopia. But this is what I mean. You don't have to be that different to other people. You don't have to spend loads of money. You just have to have the mindset and the energy to be memorable and be creative. Yeah. And I really believe that regardless of whatever your sector is, because everything I've just said, doesn't matter what sector it is, people are going to remember you for the right reasons. Yeah. And you build a story around yourself and you grow the brand.
And sorry, this is probably also a very basic question, but like literally when your sister tells you about this problem and you think, right, I need to go and buy them and distribute them, like, how did you go about distributing them? Like, did you go and find a charity? Is that what you did?
Yeah, so we also built our social media following on LinkedIn. That's what we did through the time. So anytime there was a story to tell, we told it on LinkedIn. So I took a photo, and you can go back and find it, of 50,000 towels in my shed at home. And we put it online. We go, right, we got 50,000 towels. Who wants them? And there are about 7 or 8 charities came in. And you know what was really wonderful? Both clients and partners of ours, so contractors that we used, said, hey, look, we'll come and pick some up and we'll take them here, or we'll pay for the courier to get them to Africa. Because some of them ended up in Africa on that. We have pictures of the people with the boxes of them in Africa supporting the local communities there, all from this one conversation with my sister. And so those things are really powerful. And those stories are amazing. And no one can take it away from you as long as it's real and it's very genuine. So yeah, and let me just give you one more. I love this one. This is very real. I have 150 of these, so we'll be here all day otherwise. The other one we did, so I was talking to one of our team members, and her daughter played in the under 8s or under 11s football team in Abingdon in Oxford, and they didn't have their own football kit. The girls didn't have their own football kit. They had to use the boys' football kit unwashed to play their games. So the boys would wear it first, and then they'd take it off sweaty and give it to the girls, and the girls would wear it and play. And I was like, I didn't have kids at the time. I was like, this is actually disgusting. And actually, if that was my daughter, there's no way I'd let her wear one of those things. They're like, we have no money, we have no options. I was like, how much is a football kit for like the whole team? They're like, it's like £275 or something plus VAT. I was like, just buy it. I was like, just buy it. Put Pareto's logo on the front, just because it's something nice for us to do. It'll be a good story one day, and just go and buy it. And they did. And we got these wonderful pictures. And the girls, they got one of them made, and they all signed it. We had it up in our office. We had this signed shirt from like all these girls under the age of 10. Those little stories that just resonate for the right reasons, because we were trying to support women in sport. We were trying to do the right thing by kids. And actually, for a couple of £100, we could have a story that we could dine out on forever. And by the way, here's the picture of the picture inside our office where everyone signed it off. So like, there's just loads and loads and loads of things you can do for not too much cost, but they all build a brilliant story and ultimately help communities and support people in lots of different ways.
And so, Andrew, I want to ask you this, like, your story is amazing. And there will be, I think, lots of people listening to this are going, wow, this is like fantastic. But I'm sat in my office and I'm doing the finance, the marketing, sales. I'm trying to set up systems. I'm trying to sort cash flow. I'm trying to pay wages at the end of the month. And I've got ideas. I've got loads of good ideas. I just can't act on them. Or I don't have the people around me. And it would appear to me that you have done a fantastic job of setting the vision of where you want to be, like the £20 million business, the £50 million business. And then you've put the right people in those seats, kind of assuming where you're going to go to. Like, you've put the right people in place to drive you there. And so I think, like, especially in a lot of the rooms that I hang around in, networking groups, business owners can have the mantra of, well, it's really hard to find good people. We kind of get that stuck in our heads sometimes, and it is a constraint on the business. Having good people in the right seats who can do something better than you is the biggest unlock. And similarly, when you don't make it happen, it's the biggest constraint on why everybody's doing all of the jobs in the business. So how did you make that happen? And how did you continually find good people?
Yes. You're absolutely right. Like, we had 500 odd people in the end.
Wow.
So like, when you get to 500, it's much more difficult. It really matters at the start when you're bringing those people in. You hit the nail on the head as well. Finding good people is what unlocks you to move on. Let me talk about my approach to people, because hopefully this will be some good advice. I'm going to talk about two different sets of people: the top people in your business that are going to run it for you, and everybody else. And they are two very distinctive groups. Let's focus on the leaders first. In our sector, in the membership organization that we have, 85% of our members are white men. Okay, probably tells you everything you need to know about the property services sector. I absolutely 100% deliberately went out to build the most diverse group of senior people that I possibly could. 100%, completely deliberate idea. In the end, I had 15 senior people across that time in the business, and every representation of marginalized community was in there. Now, why that mattered to me was the operatives that were working in our business, any insecurities they had, I wanted them to look up at that senior management team, and the insecurities they had, they saw that in somebody at the top. There was no glass ceiling. If you were good enough, you got to the top of Pareto, and that was really important to me. And again, I talked earlier about trying to show this diversity and the social value aspect to our business. It was real. So when we went into a sales pitch, we didn't have to scrabble around to try and find someone that was diverse in our team to make us look different. We just took our actual senior management team, and us compared to the 5 blue suits, brown shoes, certain ties that would also go into the meeting, we were completely different. And again, that made us memorable, as well as the donuts, as well as the Sanny Tales, as well as the story of the football kits. Now, the other thing I did, yes, we sold this business in total for about $100 million in the end, but that didn't all come to me. We created pots of money for other people so that they could come on the journey as well. So with those senior 15 people that we had in the business, we created a 20% sweet equity pot that at the last exit was worth over 8 figures that was shared between them. Now, they only got that value from the shares if they were here at the exit point. So it encouraged them to stay and be part of it. But of those 15 people, for those 10 years, I didn't have a single person leave. Everyone I hired in my senior team for 10 years stayed within the business. And the way I did that, and again, this is not going to surprise you, forget the CV, right? Don't care about the CV. You can get into have a meeting with me because you've done something before, but actually that's completely irrelevant. It's what are you going to do for me from this point forwards? And I go back to food and I go back to community. I was not sat in an office one-on-one with people with a list of scripted interview questions where I was taking notes on what I was doing. This was my senior team. These are people that I was going to be WhatsApping several times a day. So we go out and have a burger, or we go out and have a coffee, or we go for a walk or do something like that. Never alcohol. I wasn't big into drinking with people in first interactions. So I just wanted to get to know you. Why are you leaving a job to come and join me? I am a great guy, but I'm going to push you really hard as well. I'm going to make you work hard, and I'm going to contact you on the weekend, and I'm going to expect you to answer the phone. So do I think you've got that in you? What are you sacrificing on the weekend when I'm calling and going, sorry, this is the reindeer escaped from London Zoo on Christmas Day, which is a true story.
No, it's not.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. On Christmas Day one year, 2 reindeer were running around London Zoo. Absolutely true. The reindeer are out, need you to go and sort it out, right? So if you're going to have those sorts of conversations, and I knew they were coming from the growth we were having, I wanted to make sure that those people would get it and they'd get that we were going on a journey. I am not your typical leader, and hopefully you can see that from this sort of conversation that we're having. I also had to get that they got me and they understood that I wasn't going to be sitting you down every 6 months and doing a review or checking in on what your goals are and what you're trying to achieve. I was like, guys, we are going stratospheric with this. I just need you on the journey. And by the way, I probably won't be able to talk to you very much. I'm going to WhatsApp you all the time. And this is how we're going to communicate with each other. You need to find the right people that are going to fit into that culture. And that was my culture. And that was like, now, if you spoke to that team, many of them are still around. Some of them, there were good parts about Andrew, the leader, and there were bad parts. And you can probably guess what they were in terms of like being a micromanager and everything too. But let's just say I called you on a Saturday and asked you to do something. Then on Monday you say, oh, my kid's sick, I can't come in.
Yeah,
absolutely fine.
Yeah.
You do whatever you like. All I really care is about the output. That's how I treated that senior team. So my first piece of advice, work out who your senior people are going to be. Absolutely love them and trust them like they're your own family. And if you don't trust them, they're not for you. Like you have to absolutely believe that when you're not in the room, they're going to make the right decision for you. And when we were growing from our growth was 3, 6, 9, 14, 18, 32, 42, 50 million in that time. Just bang, 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 bang. I can't be everywhere at once. No. You need to believe those 15 people are going to absolutely do the right thing for you and you trust them 100%. If you can't, they're not right. Get someone different. So yeah, we had a 0% turnover rate in 10 years. So I got it right 15 times and I wouldn't change any of those people that went on the journey with us. The other one then is the rest of the business, which is the operatives and the managers and the middle managers. That's much harder because what you now need to do is create a culture and make sure that people understand the culture they're walking into. Yeah. Again, it won't be a surprise from what I've said. Our culture was a little bit different to other service providers within the sector. So it's really making sure at interview level that people understood they were coming into something different. We weren't fantastically structured. We didn't have brilliant processes. What we really wanted to do was hire good people and say, you tell us how to do it, and we will sort of adapt our service around how you do it. Now, for a lot of people, that worked really well, but you needed to find the right people to do that. The other thing was, if I take engineers, big generalization, but generally electrical and mechanical engineers are men. That's generally what was happening within our sector. Now, if you're going to put an engineer into Deliveroo or Netflix or ASOS, they have to be a certain type of person to be able to interact in that environment. There's no lads banter in that environment because you're gone. Those cultures are very strict in those sort of organizations, and you get it wrong and you're out. So we had to work even harder because it now just wasn't about finding a good engineer. It was about finding an engineer with a personality that was going to fit. But every single recruitment we focused on in terms of making sure it was going to work for the customer. So if you had an engineer in London Zoo, say, they may be great in the zoo, but they wouldn't be good in Netflix. Or if they were really good in Yahoo, they wouldn't be good in Bulgari or whatever it was. It was about just trying to make sure that you built the right team for the customer. At certain points, so early on in the business, we had like a 90% retention rate amongst our entire team, which was very, very high, especially in sort of the more operative workforce that we have. And that also meant then that as we grew, most people stayed within the business. That the sector average was like 60%. So like most people stayed within the business. And that meant that as the business got bigger and that 15 leadership people were there at the top as well, our culture just grew with it. And that's how you grow a great culture as you get bigger. I can't lie, as you get to about 500 people, it becomes much more challenging and you are ever more reliant on those 15 leaders to actually deliver that culture for you. And one person, and entrepreneurs, we like to believe we can do everything, but you can't. And even on 120 hours a week, you can't. You just have to hire the right team at the senior level. I would absolutely focus your energy as a young entrepreneur, a new entrepreneur, whatever, who's just started out. Who's your right-hand person? And I had a guy called Bill. Bill was my right-hand guy. And I'd known him from Rollright when we started there together as graduates. And he came in, and Bill loved to work into the night. So he'd be awake until about 3 or 4 a.m. And I would get up at around 4 a.m. So maybe 4:30. So there was, in the business at any one time, there was always someone awake. And that meant that if anything was going on, like the reindeer had got out in the zoo, and then we were actually able to deal with it. So Bill and I, just between us, we had everything covered. Now, that meant it was hard. It meant we were working long hours, and it meant I was always on because I couldn't do anything else without thinking about what was going on in the business. But I considered that my sacrifice for being the leader that one day was going to get tens of millions out of the deal. And that would be okay once I got to the retirement age. Okay. Absolutely focus on the leadership team and then let them focus on the next layer down. Forget the CV, find out who you trust, and work with them.
So I've just got 2 questions out of that. So the first one, the leadership team, you kind of alluded to it there, but those 15 people, were they all directly reporting to you?
Yes and no, not really, because you had like some were in the sales team, some were in the finance team. So you had like maybe 3 C-suite, so like the CFO, the COO, and then I was CEO until I stepped back and we hired a different one. So yeah, you had your like the C-suite, and then you had the rest of them reporting in. But we had quite a flat structure. Yeah. So really, that group of 15. If I was ever stuck on a desert island, that's the 15 that I want with me. Because between us, we would have found our way out somehow. So yeah, that was the structure. So we had the C-suite, and then we had the other, say, 12 or so underneath those.
Got you, because you alluded to that. So these people that were directly underneath you, there wasn't going to be lots of one-to-ones. They needed to deliver on their job. So how did you know that they were doing what they should be doing? Like, what was the cadence of those meetings? Was it weekly catch-ups? Like, what did that look like for you?
Weekly meetings for check-in, absolutely. And after COVID, it all moved online. So I should talk about our offices, actually, because that would be some good advice in a minute. So everything moved online. So like on a Monday afternoon, I'd have the finance meeting, I'd have an HR meeting, and I'd have a sales meeting. They'd have an hour each. They would be left to get on with it, but I'd want them to tell me what was going on. And I did it on a Monday, because if you do it on a Friday, people forget about then what's happened over the weekend. On a Monday, I'm like, right, it was on a Monday, usually between like 3 and 6 o'clock, I'd have these meetings. So then they'd be done. I'm like, great, by next Monday, this is what I need you to achieve. You've got 4 days to do it. And I would sort of just direct from that perspective. And they didn't go into the weekend thinking, oh, thank goodness it's the weekend, I can relax now. Yeah. They woke up on Tuesday going, oh, crikey, we got to make sure we get back round to this. So yeah, that was really how I did the meetings with people. Can I just go on to the offices a little bit? Because I think this is good advice. When Pareto was a £50 million business and we exited, we had 1 4-person flexi office in Reading. That's all we had. We had one of the lowest overhead rates in the sector. So our overhead was like 3.9% and the sector average was like 12%. And by the way, our EBITDA was up around 13% and the sector average was around 4%. So not only did we have huge growth, we were like 3 times more profitable than our competitors as well. And our overheads were 1/3 of what other people had. So like we were just able to deliver these amazing results. Now, the reason we did that was because most of our staff were based on client sites, delivering services, as I've just mentioned. And all our account managers, of which there was maybe 50 in the central team in the end, I didn't want them sat in an office somewhere. I wanted them to be on the client sites. Yeah. And of course, if you've got clients like Twitter, ASOS, Deliveroo, Netflix, etc., it was much nicer for them to go to the client sites than it was to be in our head office. And also what I found is account management was all about being in the presence of the client on a regular basis. And those clients we had amazing relationships with would let us sit in their offices. In Twitter, we used to eat in their restaurant for free because we had such a good relationship with them. So that is how we kept our overheads down. Now, I do a bit of M&A activity now, so buying other businesses. I meet businesses at a 20 million turnover. They've got 5 offices. I'm like, what are all these people doing? And the other little tip, and this is really important advice. If you want certain types of people, and I'm now focusing on mums. So say I want an administrator. If you let them work from home and you let them work between the hours of 9:30 and 2:30, and you're incredibly flexible around them, you can find someone in Newcastle, say, that will want maybe 1/3 less of a salary than someone in London, and you just let them go and do it in the way that they want to do. You can't trust everybody, but give some element of trust. Some of the best people we hired, we never really met on a day-to-day basis because they were completely like tele-based. And this was before COVID as well, by the way, which really spurred us on to do it a little bit more. But find someone where your job fits around their life in a way that they're never going to leave you because that works for them. It's partly why we had the high retention in that central team. Because let's just take a mum who's got kids that are at school. If she knows between those hours of 9:30 and 2:30 she's going to work, and it's never going to be a problem that she drops the kids off or picks them up, absolutely fantastic. Who else is offering that sort of flexibility? So again, I was always trying to reverse the recruitment process. Like, why does it work for them to come and work for us, even on the lower level? And I give that advice now. I'm never starting a business again, not for the time being. But if I did, that's exactly what I'd do. I'd give people flexibility.
And what about, so you had one 4-person office and that was it?
Yeah, that was it.
So I get that. So like a lot of your team were on site. So then if we just come to the leadership team, because at my PA in my business, so my office is in Manchester, all of the team work out of the same office. And for us, that sense of like community, culture is very much based around being around each other. Quick communication. Like, how did you do that with your leadership team? What did that look like for you in creating that kind of sense of, belonging? We're on the same mission together.
Yeah, so I would completely agree, by the way, and I entirely buy into this concept of being together as how you share tacit knowledge with each other in a completely unstructured way, but that's a very powerful thing to do. We generally met on client sites. So what we would do is, let's just say there was a big thing going on at London Zoo or whatever, we'd all arrange to go and meet there, and we do that quite regularly. The other thing we used was Pret. We just used to, because we're in London most of the time, the Cannon Street Pret downstairs. I'd often host senior management meetings down there. Yeah, why not? Why not? And especially when they did the, for 25 quid, you could have 5 Prets a day when they released that art. It was really cheap then to buy everybody those little passes. Don't be afraid to just go out and be around. And I found that having a coffee with people in that sort of unstructured environment. Now, we'd very rarely be talking about things that were super sensitive. And if we needed to, then of course we would use the office. The 4-person office we had also had communal space outside of it as well. So it was Impact Working in Reading. So just outside the station is the one we had. It's gone now. But it meant that you didn't really need many desks, because if a group of you wanted to meet, you could sit in the coffee area and sit and have a coffee, or you could rent a meeting room or whatever. But I think like our monthly rent was something like 1,200 a month or something for this space, even when we were nearly 50 million turnover. I mean that. So, but then we could use the communal areas and we would sort of get people in. Entrepreneurship, right, is about beg, steal and borrow. And I'm not saying bootstrap absolutely everything, but being a council estate kid and sort of always fighting to do whatever you can with limited resources, I was always great at trying to just carve out a deal or just push it a little bit further than we should. So in that space, for example, we're only meant to have 4 people in the office at any time. So we had 4 passes. Well, all we did is just kept going back out and letting the next person in, and there'd be like 20 of us in there. And like, but why not? Who's gonna come and challenge you? And if they do, then you just deal with it, right? It's about being a little bit audacious without taking it too far. So yeah, that's how you bring the cost of things right down. I think even as a 40-odd million pound business, you still need to think that way to just keep everything under control from a cost perspective. Yes, totally. And ultimately for us, what that enabled us to do, low overhead, really fast growth, profitable growth that was outperforming the sector by 3 times. That ultimately led to a good multiple at exit and got us a good value for what we were trying to do. And Pareto today, look, still exists. It's a great business. It's grown from roughly 50 when we sold it to nearly 80 now. I still sit as a non-exec on Pareto today, so I still get to go to the board meetings. We have a nice big office in Holborn these days, a little bit different to what it was. And actually, yeah, that growth has continued to go. So it never stops unless you sell to a big business that you get sucked up into eventually and everything gets lost. So that's not the plan. The private equity helps things to grow very successfully. But yeah, don't think you need to go and get a few offices just to make yourself look bigger. And also just what we also did with a couple of customers, we had one in Manchester and one in London. We said, because our office was in Reading, so we had a customer in London and a customer in Manchester. We said, would you mind if we put on our website that you were like our hubs in those areas? And they both said yes. So now when you went on our website, when we were tiny, we had a Waterloo office, we had a Manchester office, and we had a Reading office. And that's great. I go back to perception. When people go on the website, wow, Pareto's got 3 offices. And we had 3 offices for like 12 grand a year. These are real things that people can do. And I just think if you focus on money, it's a great way to do it.
Oh my God, that office story has blown me away. It really has. So first question is just around if there have been times in the business where you haven't been focusing on the fun stuff all of the time, because and I know just pre the podcast, we talked about a couple of stories, which you said you'd delve into because, it does sound like there's been 9 years of this rocket ship, which I'm sure is not completely true. And I'm sure there's been very challenging times as well.
Look, the 9-year journey I went on, it was bananas, and generally it was up, up, up.
Yeah.
We had one bad day, one bad day. There were a few bad days. No, we trusted somebody who was a new customer that we were aware of. He'd gone and started a charity that was trying to get artists into South Bank in Waterloo. Really nice idea. He ran up £2.5 million of debt on the building. 400k of that was ours, and we caught a cold of a bad debt of 400k in one single afternoon.
And how big were you with us?
Probably 25 million, that sort of stage. But look, no one wants to lose 400k.
No,
Doesn't matter what size. And even if you got 4 million in cash, losing 10% of your cash for that reason is a real kick. And actually, but look, the other thing I just say as advice, rejection and problems, that's just it, right? Don't take it personally. Things are going to go badly. People aren't going to like you. People are going to be negative. You're going to have things like that happen. Just part of it. Fail, 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 fail. Cool. That's absolutely part of it. Do not take it personally. Do not let it grind you down. And one of my very early business studies teachers, Mr. Bray, when I was 14, when he was teaching us business, he never should have said this, but he did. He just said, don't let the bastards grind you down. He said that from a 14-year-old. I still remember that now. When all those bad things are happening, they're happening for a reason. It's okay. Keep your head above. Take yourself out of it if you need to, but go back and focus on what the positives are. I know it's easy advice to give, but I was able to deflect as much of that bad stuff as happened. And look, all we did when we caught that 400k bad debt was we didn't do it again. And yes, make a mistake. Don't make the same mistake twice. But just understand you can't trust people like in the way that we did. You need to do better credit checks. You just need to be a little bit less gung-ho. But when you're growing at 77% a year in year 7 to 8, you to some degree just right, get on the journey and let's see how we go. So for us, we were fortunate. We were on the Sunday Times Fast Track in 2021. So with Richard Branson and the Virgin Fast Track stuff that we were doing, we've been on the Fast Growth 50 a couple of times as well. So what I enjoyed was we went on this mad journey that was bigger than the sector because it was now being recognized within the entrepreneurial community. We've won 40 odd awards, maybe up to 50 now in our time too. So it was predominantly great, but I just go back to it. Don't underestimate how much effort this took me to make this work. I'm sitting here telling a wonderful story, but there are sacrifices that I made in that time, mainly in my personal life. I'll come on to post life in a second, but I have had to spend some time rebuilding my personal life after getting to the exit. And as entrepreneurs, I think this is good advice. If you're in the mindset that you're doing this because it's going to lead to a bigger outcome for you and it's going to enable you to achieve something bigger in the future, you can believe that as long as it's reality that you're going to get there one day. What you have to do is if things aren't going right, if things aren't working, if you're trying to sell to someone and it's just not selling to them or anybody else, pivot, change, move away, be agile. Don't be disappointed in yourself that it hasn't worked. Just understand that the universe is not ready for you to do that yet, but it is ready for you to do something else and pivot, move away. It's okay. You have taken a risk that no one else has taken. You can do it the way that you want to. Do not just keep banging your head against the wall and just fail. Actually, be brave enough to change. I think it's such important advice. And if you don't do that, then that's how you end up in quite a dark place. So now look, in our time, we went through 2 private equity exits. So we had one in 2021. And then that investor that invested in 2021, we made them a 420% return on their money in 2.5 years. We then had our big exit in 2023, which is when I got my beach money, as they call it. And I was able to step back when I was 37. So I effectively operationally retired. And these days now, I am the chair of IWFM, which is the Workspace Institute. So I just look after them as a volunteer, and I'm still a non-exec on Pareto. And so I still get to advise the board and sort of be that founder character, which you can imagine. I love walking around, less donuts now. Let me talk a bit about after, if I can, because this is something that I hadn't really reflected on. So it was 2 years ago that I finished up. What I sacrificed in my personal life was my relationships. So I wasn't at home enough. I didn't see my kids enough when they were born, didn't spend enough time with my wife. And often she would say, I need you here. And I'd said, I'm sorry, I'm going to be there instead. Didn't spend enough quality time with my mum and dad. And I just didn't see my friends. My friends were the easiest no, because when they said on a Friday, hey, Hulbert, come to London and have a beer, firstly, guys, sorry, I'm nowhere near London and I can't be hungover on Saturday because I'm doing this. And by the way, I haven't seen my wife for a couple of weeks, so probably I need to see her first. The great thing about boys is after like 5 years into this, I'd finished up and I called them all and I said, hey, I'm really sorry. I've been away. They're like, we didn't really realize you'd gone anywhere. Oh, but anyway, so the last couple of years, I bought a farm over in Oxford. So I've got some acreage out the back now, and I predominantly have just been spending time with my family. So I have another quad bike now, and we'll drive down to the farm. We'll pick some berries. We'll make some jam. We'll make some sourdough, plant some carrots, whatever it is with the kids. My kids are 4 and 6 now. The one thing I've learned, this is hard advice to understand when you're in the midst of the grind. My absolute joy now is being at home with the kids. And I mean this in the most sincere way. There is nothing better than waking up in the morning with no alarm clock. I've slept for 9 hours straight, which is absolutely magic. And only this morning, my daughter comes in and just gives me a cuddle for like 20 minutes. I promise, in that moment of that cuddle, the fact that I'm even there, the fact I want to be there, the fact I'm not checking my phone, the fact I'm not thinking about anything else, that is what wealth is. And I absolutely love that with all my heart. And the money enables me to do that. Yeah. But going out and buying the bright yellow McLaren sports car that I did does not bring me anywhere near as much joy as being in the moment and being in love. And you could never have convinced me that that was the case before I went on this journey. Okay. It took me to get the chip off my shoulder that I needed to grow a business, become rich, and all those amazing things that go with it. But it's the love and it's the power of, I don't know where my phone is. Actually, I don't care because I'm in this moment right here. And then my son will come in and someone's like jumping and kicking and playing together. That is what wealth feels like to me now. And I absolutely love it. And you couldn't pay me enough money. In fact, I'd give all my money back just to keep going and having those relationships with them. And I understand as the kids get older, they won't want Papa to be around all the time, and that'll be different for them. But right now, I'm absolutely loving it. And my advice would be, if you can, carve out some time in your day or your week to really be present, put everything else away, forget the tech, and just be there and love it and appreciate it, because you just don't know when things change. Yeah. And things change so often. So that's where you find me today with everything that's going on.
Amazing. I totally get that. And obviously, like, now you've made the money and you get to make the choices in how you spend the time. And I just wondered if, like, knowing what you know now, so like you said, you're doing like 110 hours a week. Are there things that you might have done differently? Like, would you have done 100 hours a week? Or, you know, is there anything here where you're like, oh, actually, I probably should have done that a bit differently?
I was so highly strung and I was so focused on success and getting to the end. I saw life as this capitalist curve that you go to school, you go to uni, you get a job, you work till you're 70 and then you die. I wanted to get off that curve as early as possible. I don't think with the mindset that I had, you could have convinced me that it would have been the right thing to do. It doesn't mean it's okay. Now, what I was incredibly lucky with, my wife, Heather, we've been together for 20 years now, but 9 of those years I wasn't there. So to be able to maintain a marriage and actually the courage that she had to be able to stick with me through that time, without Heather there, I wouldn't have been able to do it. And I really mean that. And many entrepreneurs and people listening to this will know divorce is often what happens when someone goes on a crazy journey like that. The fact we had kids when we did, and like the bond that we have now and the time we get to spend together, we hold that incredibly dear. And that's very important now. I don't think I could have convinced myself to have done it any differently because I was on a journey and I needed to do it. And I am a headstrong, like I said, chip on my shoulder. I needed to prove that I could do it only to myself. I'm not trying to prove it to anyone else. And again, just final piece of advice on this. Don't look to others for your affirmations. It's all about what's going on in here. Even though we were going on this crazy growth journey and everything was positive, I was so hard on myself all the way. Everyone was going, well done. Look at all these awards. You're amazing. This story is great. Even though I was like, no, we could do it bigger. We could do it better. We could be better with our customers. We could do stuff like much bigger than we are now. So hard on myself all the way through. And even on the day when you get 8 figures in your bank account, you know, that's a great feeling to do that. And actually then you sort of feel like everything was justified at that stage as well. But I was always wanting more. I never looked to others for where I was going to get my motivation from. It was always just what was happening in here. And if you are sat there on Instagram and TikTok looking at how successful everyone else is, forget it. None of it's real anyway. A lot of these people that haven't been successful, success is how you feel in here. And if you can deliver that in a way where you really believe that and live by that, you hold yourself to the highest standards, I think that's the right mindset to be in.
Andrew, this episode has been incredible. Honestly, thank you so much for coming here today. I know like you've traveled a distance to spend the time here. I know people listening to this are going to get so much from it.
I'm enjoying telling the story. I'm hugely appreciative of us. And like I said to you, I love the ability to come and actually have these conversations face to face, because we're feeding off each other's energy. Look, I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Instagram. If people want to reach out and have a chat, I'm more than happy to.
So where can people find you?
So the main two places, if you go on Instagram, I'm _ Andrew Hulbert. I have an open profile there. You'll find me. And on LinkedIn, I'm just / Andrew Hulbert. So you'll find me on there. I get contacted by all sorts of weird and wonderful people these days. Now I've opened my profile out. But if anyone wants some genuine conversation and wants some feedback and advice, you can see I have some quite practical things that I can say this is actually what you can do. But yeah, I'm 39 now. I don't know what the next 40 years looks like, but I'm looking forward to finding out. I'm in no rush. I'm looking forward to meeting people and telling the story. And thank you for the opportunity. It means a lot.
You're so welcome. This was brilliant. Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you.